Bitcoin was supposed to change the world, and for a moment one company controlled almost all of it. Mt Gox handled over 70% of global Bitcoin trades. It looked unstoppable. Then $473 million vanished. 850,000 Bitcoins were gone just like that. The missing millions triggered panic, lawsuits, and what many called the largest massive crypto exchange fraud in history. Protesters surrounded the building. Federal agents launched an investigation. Bitcoin's price collapsed. This is the story of the rise, the mystery, and the day the world believed Bitcoin had died. What really happened behind closed doors? The answer begins in silence, without any alarms, flashing red screens, and dramatic final warning. On March 7, 2014, high above Tokyo, Mark Karpeles sat alone in his penthouse apartment. The man who had once overseen the world's largest Bitcoin marketplace was now confined to what felt like self-imposed house arrest. Outside, camera crews crowded the street below the Shibuya office of Mt. Gox. Protesters held signs demanding answers. Online, the hate mail poured in. Inside, it was just him, his tabby cat, and a number that refused to make sense. 850,000 Bitcoins were gone for real. A week earlier, Mt. Gox had filed for bankruptcy protection in Japan. The company admitted it had lost roughly 7% of all Bitcoin in existence. At the time, that meant $473 million. Today, it would be worth billions. From the outside, it looked like a towering monument to renegade digital capitalism collapsing in real time. From the inside, former employees would later describe something very different: disorganization, neglect, inexperience, and one man at the center of it all. But the collapse didn't start in 2014, it started years earlier. Back in 2010, Mt. Gox wasn't really a financial powerhouse. It was a recycled website originally built for trading fantasy cards. Its creator, Jed McCaleb, had named it Magic, the gathering online exchange. When Bitcoin began circulating in niche internet forums, McCaleb saw an opportunity. He transformed the card trading site into a crypto exchange almost overnight. In 2011, he sold it to Karpeles in exchange for a share of future revenue. And that's when the real story began. Under Karpeles, Mt. Gox grew at a pace that bordered on absurd. By 2013, it processed over 70% of global Bitcoin trades. If you bought Bitcoin anywhere in the world, odds were high that your transaction passed through its servers in Tokyo. It became the price setter, the liquidity engine, the backbone of Bitcoin itself, and that kind of dominance paints a target. Hackers noticed early. In 2011, attackers used stolen credentials to manipulate the exchange. Bitcoin prices briefly crashed to pennies. Thousands of coins disappeared. The incident was treated as a painful but survivable breach. What nobody understood at the time was that something much worse had already happened. Investigations years later suggested that Mt. Gox's private keys, the digital master keys controlling its cold storage, had been stolen as early as 2011. So they were already allegedly unencrypted, exposed, and vulnerable. If that's true, then the drain began quietly, long before anyone saw the flood. Bitcoin transactions are recorded on the blockchain, an immutable ledger designed for transparency, but Mt. Gox maintained its own internal accounting system, and that system was flawed. There was no reliable reconciliation between customer balances and actual reserves, no proper version control software. Security updates waited for one person's approval, Karpeles. Former insiders described a company that moved fast when markets were booming and froze when problems surfaced. Engineers struggled with outdated infrastructure. Withdrawal delays became common. Customers complained across forums and social media. Then came the technical excuse that would define the final weeks: transaction malleability. The exchange claimed that a bug in the Bitcoin protocol allowed attackers to alter transaction IDs, making it appear as though withdrawals hadn't gone through. Mt. Gox insisted this was the reason for mounting discrepancies, but independent developers pushed back. The bug was real. The scale of loss wasn't. By early February 2014, the tension snapped. Mt. Gox halted Bitcoin withdrawals entirely, citing suspicious activity in its digital wallets. Panic spread instantly. Bitcoin's price plunged nearly 20% in days. Behind closed doors, the numbers were worse than anyone imagined. The company discovered it was missing over 850,000 bitcoins. About 200,000 would later be found in an old format wallet. The remaining 650,000 were simply gone. That revelation pushed the exchange into insolvency. Bankruptcy filings followed in the Tokyo District Court. Liquidation orders were issued. The world watched as the largest crypto exchange on Earth disintegrated. But the mystery didn't end with bankruptcy. It deepened further. Investigators began tracing stolen coins across the blockchain. Patterns emerged. Large volumes flowed through wallets linked to BTC-E, another exchange operating in a regulatory gray zone. One name surfaced repeatedly: Alexander Vinnick. Authorities alleged that Vinnick helped launder billions in illicit cryptocurrency through BTC-E, including funds connected to Mt. Gox. In 2017, he was arrested in Greece and later convicted on fraud-related charges. Whether he orchestrated the original theft remains somewhat disputed, but what's clearer is that the stolen coins moved through a web of addresses over years, slipping through jurisdictions and exploiting the absence of global crypto regulation. Meanwhile, legal chaos unfolded on multiple fronts. A former partner, CoinLab, sued Mt. Gox for $75 million, alleging breach of contract. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security investigated its American operations for operating without proper licensing. Millions were seized. Creditors lined up. Lawsuits multiplied. The investigation stretched across continents. Then came an unexpected twist. Because Bitcoin's price skyrocketed after 2014, the 200,000 recovered Bitcoins became extraordinarily valuable. Instead of distributing cash based on 2014 prices, Japanese courts shifted the process into civil rehabilitation. Creditors could potentially receive compensation in Bitcoin itself. That decision changed everything. Suddenly, what had been a catastrophic loss turned into a long, complex financial chess match. Every delay mattered. Every legal maneuver carried enormous monetary consequences. As of years later, creditors were still waiting for final payouts, and for every Bitcoin once owed, only a fraction remained in custody. There are two categories of Mt. Gox coins now. First, the stolen coins, likely laundered, possibly unrecoverable. Second, the coins that were never lost but became trapped in litigation. These sit under the control of the court-appointed trustee, awaiting distribution. The missing millions became a symbol of something larger than one company's failure. For many observers, February 2014 felt like the day Bitcoin died. Media headlines declared the experiment finished. Skeptics celebrated. Regulators sharpened their focus. But Bitcoin didn't disappear, it just adapted. Exchanges strengthened cold storage policies. Security audits became standard. Regulatory frameworks slowly emerged. Investors learned a harsh lesson. Not your keys, not your coins. Mt. Gox became crypto's original life lesson. A story about explosive growth without structure, about a coder placed in the role of global financial gatekeeper, about private keys left exposed, and about a system built on mathematical trust that still relied on human competence. On that quiet March evening in Tokyo, as Karpeles sat alone reading accusations that labeled him a thief, the weight of the collapse settled in. Was he a mastermind behind a massive scam, or a programmer overwhelmed by a machine that grew too fast? Courts would later acquit him of embezzlement while convicting him on lesser charges related to data manipulation. The narrative remained complicated, but the damage was done. 850,000 bitcoins had vanished, hundreds of thousands of users were left in limbo, and the myth of crypto invulnerability shattered overnight. Mt. Gox didn't fall because of one dramatic hack in February 2014. It fell because small failures were ignored for years. A stolen key in 2011, a missing audit in 2012, a delayed patch in 2013. Each crack widened quietly until the structure could no longer hold. And when it collapsed, it took nearly $500 million with it. The Mt. Gox disaster wasn't the end of Bitcoin. It was the end of blind faith. In a world promising decentralization and transparency, one centralized exchange held the keys to everything, and when those keys slipped away, the world learned a brutal truth. Code can be immutable. Institutions are not.